Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John, and I recently bought this massive excavator, and today I'm going to do a service on it. I've already done some work on it in earlier videos, just getting some of the major leaks dealt with. Pores. Oh yeah, look at that. So this is the 12th bucket. But now I'm ready to kind of really go through it and get this thing back in action. I need to change the engine oil, the filters, the fuel filter, air filters, all that kind of stuff. But before I do any of that, what I want to do is power wash this thing. And that is going to be a huge job in itself. And comes with a little bit of a complication. Let me show you. This isn't too bad. This is just dirt. But this thing is packed with oily, greasy junk. And, you know, back in here and in the engine bay and everything, it is just really packed in there. Here we are on the side. Here's the hydraulic tank. A little dirty on top, not too bad. But if you look down in there, it's just packed with leaves and grease and just junk. Bunch of greasy leaves down in there. And, you know, it looks like several inches of greasy stuff that I need to deal with. So I don't want to just power wash this here because it's going to dump all that stuff on the grass and this in my yard and kill it. But I also don't really want to track the machine away from my shop. That's going to make it more difficult to work on. So what I've decided to do, and I've had this in mind for a while, is this area right beside my covered area. I may actually cover this someday and use this for the big tracked machines, because you don't want concrete. It'll bust up concrete, then you got to protect that all the time. But I also don't want to work on grass. Grass is full of bugs, it itches, it gets long while the machine's sitting there. It's kind of annoying. You lose stuff in it whenever you drop anything. So I could put gravel there. That's also not the greatest thing to work on, but it's okay. But what I have is a bunch of this conveyor belt. And I harvested this from an old horse ring in a previous video. You guys might remember that. It's kind of dirty. So I'm going to power wash it, and then we're going to overlap it and basically line that whole area with rubber. And then I can pull the body of the machine onto that, and we're going to power wash it. Let me quit yakking and we'll get to work. There, that's a little better. Now I can crawl under there and not be in the grass. And if I drop something, I should be able to find it relatively easily. Of course, I'm going to power wash this thing and put dirt everywhere. What are you going to do? If you saw the earlier videos on this machine, you know that the tracks would jump off on one side occasionally. And I actually think it was because the dirt was packed up so high, it was lifting the tracks up above the rollers. Hopefully it's fixed now. So before I clean all this off, I want to get some of the stuff off of this swing bearing. Boy, it's hard junk. Basically, I want to feel the grease and see if I can feel any metal bits in it. I feel hard old grease and dirt, but I don't think any metal. So that's a good sign. Yeah, no metal in there. So I'm going to go all around the swing bearing doing that, and I'll let you know if I find anything. So just cleaning this thing up is going to be a massive job, but it's absolutely necessary so that I can see problems, check out the machine, and find oil leaks. So We're going to be doing this for a couple days, I think. Man. All right. That'll do. So I've gone most of the way around the swing bearing. The seal feels good the whole way and there's no metal chips. That's pretty reassuring, actually. The bearing might be okay. Boy, that would be nice. So I pulled forward so that I could clean up this dirt, and I started hearing a noise, and I thought, oh, I must be right on the edge of the concrete. Or I'm pulverizing the concrete. Look at that. It was just crushing its way into the concrete. That is amazing. Maybe I can use this thing as a rock crusher too. I'll probably find some tools somewhere in here. So far, a couple bolts that are still serviceable. These are just broken off, rusted up junk. Looks like a 12mm hex socket. This deal just keeps getting better and better. So there's the rest of the breather. So I've got this side vacuumed out as well as I can. You know, that engine being central makes everything on it inaccessible. So I'm going to go drop the belly pan underneath and let's see. Hopefully everything will be, or most everything will be fairly accessible from there. Oh, but you know what? Before I do that, this whole thing right here is the air intake, the cool air intake. Remember, this is an air-cooled diesel. So there's a big fan in there and it draws the surrounding air in and it goes across the cylinders and also across like an oil cooler that's under there. This is the hydraulic oil cooler here. So let's take that cowling off. Oh, look at that. We've got peanuts, or acorns. A little more in there. I will vacuum that out and then leave the cover off so I can power wash that as well. These are those really heavy duty fins. You can't bend them, so power washer's not going to hurt them. All right, going to start dropping some of these pans. The main one is right here. And do you notice anything? It's plywood, which I'm not too disappointed about. It's on hinges. It should swing down. It won't be too terribly heavy. Should be fine. Another one there. I think there's another one up there. There's one in the front. of the plywood there. So let's get these off of here. I've got an old carpet here. Coincidentally, this was just recently thrown away by my wife. Probably looks great on camera, but it's not great. But I figured it would be a nice thing to catch all this junk with. So let's open her up. Oh, it's not heavy at all. That's a very oily engine. So that's what I'm seeing. I see oil all the way up to the oil cooler. Huh. There's our fuel filter. Engine oil filter. I think all I can do is just clean it out and then look and see where it's leaking. You guys want to gander at this loveliness? Alright, so under the machine, you look up in here, there's like this cloth-lined hole, and that is the oil cooler up there, and there is obviously a leak. That thing in the center is a motor that runs a fan, and possibly there's a seal in that that's leaking. That would be my guess, or maybe just a loose hydraulic line. That would be nice. Anyway, yeah, I want to get that cleaned up too, so I am gonna pop this thing off. In order to do that, I have to release this cloth shroud thing. So here you can see the outside of the shroud. All right, so standing up in the oil cooler space, you can see, doesn't look like we're missing a hose clamp, but that is just a clamped line. Maybe that's leaking. But obviously there's more leaking up here. Ugh, that's disgusting. So there's the engine, there's the injection pump. There's the oil cooler. You can see that there's oil coming out there. And the temperature gauge does not work on this thing. I'm not sure where that is. I need to learn this engine. It'll be a lot easier to do once I get it clean. Ooh, look at this belt over here. That's not good. Wonder which belt that is. All right, don't get sidetracked. We'll keep cleaning. I have all the plates off. The bulk of the material that needs to be thrown away is out of the machine. The only thing I haven't done is the center swivel section behind that beam. You guys haven't seen under there. Let's crawl under here into this lovely area. It's an absolute mess in here. There's our swivel joint right there. Get in here and get this all cleaned out so I can work on it. Not looking forward to it, but let's do it. that was a long way from fun. And there's still a lot left, but I got a good chunk of it. I think I can power wash from here. I've had enough of this. So this is everything I found in the bottom of the machine. The pipe wrench is actually in pretty good shape, so that's nice. An old bent screwdriver, a 12mm hex, a couple of bolts, and then a high temperature marker. I'm missing the end cap for my air filter housing. It actually draws the air in through here, through a hose back here. With this off, it's been drawing the air from here. I don't think it really matters, but there's also an exhaust leak in here, so it's probably pulling in some exhaust, which is not good. I don't think it'd be a good idea for me to spray water in there when I'm power washing. I will try to avoid it, but I'm also going to cover it up with a trash bag, because that's what I got. Not great, but it'll do for now. So you might be wondering why I haven't opened up this back panel. It has 2 locks on it, and the whole thing is supposed to hinge up, and I think that would give me a good look at the belts and the turbo and the back of the engine. The problem is, these locks don't seem to do anything. I've tried the key, of course. It doesn't do anything. I've stuck a screwdriver in and turned. That doesn't do anything. And even prying up with a crowbar, the thing just seems locked down. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to, I think I'm just going to have to break it. Well, let's start ripping and tearing. Well, this thing is special. Stupid design, come on. This counterweight is underneath, so there is 0 access. There's no way to get to it. It's going to take some destruction, I think. God. And it just doesn't feel like the thing is engaging anything. So I think the lock just doesn't do anything anymore. I've got to defeat whatever latching mechanism there is in some other way. So up under there, there's a couple bolts, and I suspect they are securing the locking plate that this is latching against. So if I can get that off of there, hopefully this thing will unlatch. Of course, the door's in the way, but nothing a die grinder can't fix. I swear it feels like there's a nut on the backside. What the hell, man? What were they thinking? All right, I was able to reach up in there and get a wrench on this. The question is it going to stay on? All right, I got those stupid bolts out. Had to turn the camera off to do that. Let's see if this thing is... Yeah, it's free now. At least on this side. That was no easy feat. I'm really looking forward to the other side. Okay, I got this side apart too. Good grief, that was so ridiculous. That's the thing that frustrates me the most, is nonsensical things that are just needlessly difficult. Like, they could have just put regular padlock hasps here. And if you want to lock it, you put a padlock on, and if there's no padlock, then it's not locked. Why make it so difficult? You can do your little lock, but you have to have a backup plan if your latch fails. Both latches weren't working. How do I get it open? Anyway, See, we're free now. I now have access to the belts. That's a big difference. All right, I got this thing propped up. It's nice and solid. And now you can see why I needed to get in here. This gives me access to the whole back of the engine. The turbo, which is certainly going to need some work at some point. There's the alternator. The belts running this cooling fan, the fins of which could stand to be cleaned. And from here I can hit both sides with the power washer. I also don't like this. My turbo is right here, and this pipe is totally rotted out. It doesn't have much left to it. In fact, I can reach my finger in right there too. Yeah, that's right open to the weather. I don't see how water is not getting into that turbo. Ugh. For now, I'm gonna see if I can get a sheet metal thing up under here just to cover that up and protect it, so that I can power wash in here and not worry about that. And also it can rain, but I mean, this thing's been getting rained on forever. So if the rain's causing it damage, that damage is done. There, that'll give me some protection from the power washer. I went ahead and put the breather cap back on. I put a rubber washer in there so that's watertight. And I just wired it in place so that it can't come off. I'll avoid trying to hit it, but I can power wash this area and no water's going to get down into that. So I've got the hydraulic breather covered, I've got the air filter housing covered, and the turbo covered, and I think we're okay to do some power washing now, finally. So my plan is to hit it first, just straight water, and knock all the big stuff off. There's still a lot on here. Then once I've done that, I will degrease the whole thing and wash it again. Well, that was a miserable job. You know, the problem is you power wash one area, it sprays it on the other area that you just washed. You go back and do that, and you're just throwing the same grime back and forth. So essentially, I went over the whole thing 5 times probably, degreased it and a couple of times, and I'm done. I can't take any more today. Here we are after cleaning. It is probably 90 to 95% better. It's not perfect. I mean, I washed this thing so many times. I don't know if I can really convey how much work I've put into cleaning this thing, and it's still dirty. But it's a huge improvement from what it was. So things look a lot better. It's amazing. I mean, I've tried so hard to get every spot and I still miss things. But when you're in here with a power washer and there's stuff flying everywhere, it's kind of hard to see. But things look so much better. The oil cooler continues to leak. I think the vast majority of the oil that was coming off the engine is this oil cooler. I degreased and washed from bottom and top there, and it's still oily. So that oil cooler is going to have to come off. I'm not really sure how that happens, but I'm going to get to that later. The nice thing is this engine is still supported. It's a good engine, so I can work on this engine. I'm not too worried about that. It's just going to take some time, but I'll get to that later. This is the hydraulic supply, you know, from the tank to the low pressure hydraulic pump. There's two pumps on it, one on the back of the engine, one on the front. The main pump line is here, and unfortunately it has a leak. You can see that oil there dripping. So that line's going to need to be replaced. And, you know, it's just kind of a flex line. It's low pressure because it's on the supply to the pump, so it shouldn't be too awful, I hope. It's probably metric though, so it might be hard to find. Now, gosh, I hate getting under this thing. I've got a leak coming from something right there. Where is that coming from? Gosh, I sprayed the heck out of this thing and it's still dirty. Well, it sure looks better than it did. Remember how packed with dirt this thing was? Gosh, this was so much work. But you look at that. Right there. I wonder if I just need to tighten those. How awesome would that be? Oh yeah, that wasn't very tight. Wasn't very tight at all. All right, we'll have to check on this again later. And the other thing I see under here, so the lines from the grease fittings, they all come down right there and they split and go to the swing bearing. There's one, there's one, there's one, and the last one is over there. But if you look at that line right there, you can see why it's not working. That line has been totally worn away by something. I don't know how that happened. That's all right, because you only need one point to grease the whole thing. That just makes it more convenient that you can grease 4 at a time. So I can grease 3 at a time, and then I just have to like use this line and keep coming around to get that quadrant of the bearing, if that makes any sense. And I may fix that line at some point, but right now that's a pretty low priority. And while I'm under here, I checked all the other ones. They were all good and tight. Good and tight. Just that one. So I'm pretty hopeful that that'll be it for this. That's one easy thing. Oh, just jinxed myself. I get one of these on all my machines. And this isn't one of the tiny ones, it's a decent size. There, I like that. Every time I get in, it's going to remind me to look at that. See that it's charged, you know, rotate it some. I did a whole video on fire extinguishers after I almost burned my boom lift. It's not just as simple as throwing your extinguisher in there. You need to think about things. You need to get one that's refillable with a metal valve and do it right. I'll leave a link. I am seeing so many things that need work on this thing. I'm having trouble staying on track. This thing right here, hanging down, I'm pretty sure that this went there, and that has melted, probably from our exhaust leak. That would have been an air filter restriction sensor, basically telling you when you needed to change the air filter. I'm not worried about that. I don't need that. None of my other machines have that. I just replace the filter when they've run for a while. I'm not sure what this sensor is. Those are fuel lines, I'm pretty sure. It looks like it just came unplugged and it's really loose. That's probably all that is, but before I plug it back in, I want to know what it is and make sure there's not going to be an issue. Down here is a sensor that I don't even see a wire for. I'm almost certain is supposed to be a sensor that if the belts that are running this blower here fail and the tensioner loses its tension, it's going to go this way and push a button that's supposed to be on that sensor and basically shut down the engine. Because this is an air-cooled engine, that's your coolant. If that fan's not running, you're going to overheat and your engine's not going to last very long. These belts, this one's not even on, and I've been tinkering with them for a little bit, and they seem like they're different lengths. I suspect the one that was on there has stretched. It feels thinner. And this one, which is cracked anyway, I need new belts. That's obvious. And then this is the alternator. And I didn't spray that down with the power washer because I just didn't want to risk messing it up. It probably wouldn't hurt it, but it's so loose that I'm not sure that that's been doing anything. Obviously, the turbo is here. We're going to be addressing that at some point in the future. The turbo, I think, is the main reason that the engine is down on power. But for right now, let's get these belts off of here so that I can replace these. In order to do that, this is the low pressure hydraulic pump. The high pressure main hydraulic pump is on the front of the engine. So in order to get these belts off, I have to unbolt here and I think here, and then the belts can slide in between. I'm going to need to move that too, maybe. Take that off too, maybe. Maybe I should have done that instead. Well, I think I'd have been better off if I had done these bolts between the coupling and the engine rather than between the pump and the coupling. Because when that separates, there's going to be plenty of room and there's no nut to deal with. So I'll remember that for next time. Yeah, see there? Plenty of room. There, now we can get these belts off of here. Yeah. Tensioner bearing feels good. A little bit of noise, but I think it's coming from the housing, not the bearing. Yeah, I think that's probably fine. Alright, gonna have to wait till Monday to get those belts. It's Saturday now, but there's other stuff we can work on. So we're underneath the oil cooler and we still have a leak here. I think it's coming from the cooler itself because I can see it all the way up here, even you know, above the seal that would be on this motor here. That said, I am going to go ahead and check all the connections here, make sure everything's tight. And I did notice another thing. Yeah, see, I've got some leakage here and here, and those are just hose clamps. So I just need to, well, see, this hose clamp isn't even on. There's only one clamp on that, and that's definitely leaking. So I'll get the second hose clamp on it and crank those down. Maybe that'll help that at least. After all that spraying, it's still not clean. I mean, it's way better than it was. Yeah, for the record, I was already done cleaning this. Done. But I had already spent several days washing this thing before I saw the latest Camerata video where his excavator burned. Getting all that junk off of there is definitely a good thing. Helps prevent fires, or at least reduce the risk of fire. Yeah, that's tight. That's tight. Need a bigger wrench for that. Be right back. Oh yeah, that's tight. And so is that one. So nothing loose on that. It's coming from above. That wasn't very tight. Click. That one wasn't very tight either. I'll leave it like that and we'll check back later and see if there's any leaks. So this is the bottom of the diesel fuel tank, and in theory I should be able to drain any water off if this thing still works. In theory. Yeah, I don't think that thing's gonna move. Vice grips. Ooh. And moved. A little bit. Now the worry is it'll start draining and it won't stop. That would really stink. Yeah, I don't like the way that feels at all. I think I'm going to leave that. I'm going to screw it back in and leave it alone. I think I'm just asking for it here. I want to see how much fuel's in this thing. I think there's actually quite a bit. This is a clean bar. Yeah. I've got 34.5 inches of fuel, 87 centimeters. 35 by 16. Wow, that's 83.5 gallons. 316 liters of diesel fuel in there. I'll definitely take that. All right, that didn't sit right with me. I'm worried that there's water at the bottom of that tank. In fact, there might be a lot of it. So I've got a clean bucket here. What I'm going to try to do is put this little petcock that actually works in place of that with a full tank. The question is, are the threads the same size? So when I start, boy, do I want to do this. That's probably some goofy metric thing. Darn it. Yeah, I better not. If this thing starts leaking and I can't stop it, I need a place to put 80 some gallons of diesel fuel. And I do have a diesel tank, but I mean, that would just be a lot of work. Ooh, I have an idea. I've got a fluid extractor here, and if I can fish this hose all the way down to the bottom of that tank, I can just pump off some of what's on the bottom, and we'll see if there's water in it or not. Certainly feels like it's on the bottom. Looks like good clean diesel to me. I'm going to try a different position. Let's see how that looks. Looking down in this, I really don't see evidence of water, but let's dump it into a clean bucket and know for sure. Yeah, I mean, given I pumped that right off the bottom of the tank, that actually looks really good to me. I don't see any evidence of water. There's not even that much crud in it, which I would expect there to be a lot. I think we're gonna leave good enough alone. I'm gonna dump most of this right back in the tank. So I got a new breather. Might even fit the way that's bolted on there, but we'll see in just a minute. Could I get that lucky? Probably not. Close but no cigar. Surprisingly, it fits down in there like perfect. And by the way, this is a breather for a cat. I think it's a 315 or something. It's a pretty big breather for a comparable size machine, so it should work just fine. I feel a lot better about that. All right, I came back and I actually tightened this fitting because it always has oil under it. You can see that. But it still could be coming from above. It's hard to tell.
What I can tell you, I put a pig mat here and it is not leaking nearly as much as it was.
So I'm actually more suspicious that it's this fitting. And maybe the fan is sucking it up in there. The top of this thing. Yeah, see, the top is dry. Is it leaking down the side? I don't think so. No? So it's possible that it's dripping off right there, just coincidentally right onto this, to make it really tough for me to tell. Is it coming from here? Is it coming from there? So I think I need to put a pig mat on top of this line and verify if this line is leaking or not. There, I've got a pig mat clamped on above it. So that's going to tell me which one's leaking, if it's one of them or both. Good news is my double hose clamp seems to have worked over here. I've got no leak here. No leaky leaky. Love that. And let's crawl under to my favorite place. I still got a little bit of oil on that fitting, but I can tell you it looks like it's dripped like once, so it is way less than it was. So I will tighten that just a little bit more. Just that. About 24 hours, so yeah, I could probably make it stop entirely by tightening it again, but if that's all it was going to leak, I think I'd let it leak. Maybe, I don't know. I hate oil leaks. As far as our leak in underneath, there was always a little puddle of oil right there, and there's not a single drip on it for like a day and a half now. So I think we've got that pretty well sorted. With this pig mat here, there is absolutely no leakage, and there's not that much on the mat. You know, I bet you the oil does go up around that fan to lubricate bearings. I was thinking that the motor would have a seal at this level and nothing above, but that's probably wrong. So, yeah, I think it's probably the fan that's leaking, which would be better, I think, than the oil cooler, because that's going to be almost impossible to fix. This might just be replacing a seal. But I also think this was leaking. I think I made a big difference in how much it leaks by tightening that up. All right, this air cleaner cover, I would really like something better. Obviously I'm going to change the air cleaners, but I need a cover first. There's an exhaust leak in this compartment. This isn't how it's supposed to be drawing air anyway. Let's fix it. Problem is, I know you're going to be shocked. The part is discontinued. Nobody has it. Nobody has any used ones. I'm going to have to make something. There's a rubber seal right there. You know, even if something like that was available, it'd have been $80, $100. Yeah, they'd have charged you an arm and a leg. I think I got lucky. It fits really well. So now all I need is something sticking out here so that when this band goes on, this can't come off. Well, I can't get it off, but it didn't tighten all the way. So I think I'm gonna just make those weld beads a little bit thicker. Just made all those a little bit thicker. Oh yeah. See, now it's getting tight before I hit the end. So that's really good. That's ugly. It's pretty clean on the inside though. So, doing its job. Well, that thing doesn't look half bad. Doesn't look half good either, but that's not going anywhere. So I've had requests from multiple people to fix this thing hanging off here. There's a reason I haven't. It's not metal, it's fiberglass. See that? And yeah, if it was just metal, I would have long since bent it back and put a sheet metal screw or something in it. But it's a darn mess. Fiberglass. Why do they do fiberglass? Yes, I could go get some fiberglass repair kit and do all that, but that's silly. This old machine, this is purely cosmetic. This does not need to do anything. But I'll make a deal with you. I'm gonna do a farmer fix on it. It's gonna look good. I know, that looks terrible. Stick with me a minute. Man, that looks great. That's the best looking area of the machine. All right, so for the record, I'm aware that is an absolute hack job, but it looks better than it did. And honestly, I want to see how long that lasts. That Gorilla Tape is impressive stuff. I've seen it last for many months without anything on it. So with that paint as a UV protectant, how long will that last? I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out. We have an alternator belt. Much better. All right, this is the switch, or at least what's left of it, that is supposed to sound the horn if the belts break. I talked to a Deutz dealer. They said that this would be not part of the engine, but part of the excavator. I'm skeptical of that. I mean, there's an air-cooled engine. There's got to be some means of making sure it doesn't overheat. But whatever. I'm having trouble locating this part, so I'm going to take this off of here and see if I can better identify it without destroying it. There's the remnants of the button. All right, so I've got several things of writing on it. That looks like 6 to 24 volts, and then it says 150 watts, C5, whatever. I'm not sure what that is. There's something on there. Nothing there, nothing there. But here, looks like a little logo kind of thing, KHD, and it says 224-7073. So that's what I was looking for. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to find a replacement for this. Now, if not, it feels like the button still works. It's just that the tip was broken off, and I'd be willing to bet that that's something I could make. The problem is, it looks like this thing is epoxied and crimped. So I would have to do some damage to get it open, and then trying to get it back together and sealed again. Be much better to get a new one, but worst case scenario, maybe I could cobble something together here.
A few moments later.
So I found one of these, good old eBay, 40 bucks. It's on its way. All right, I put that bracket back on, so hopefully when the new sensor comes, I can put it on there even though the belts and everything are going to be installed. But I don't want to wait a week before I run this thing again. All right, I admit it, I lied. I thought I was going to do a service in this video, but I still haven't done the engine oil and filter. I haven't done the fuel filters. I did the air filters, and we did the hydraulic filters previously. I still have to do the final drives. Obviously, there's a lot more to do. So let me explain. Why haven't I done the engine and oil? Well, because I found that the oil cooler is leaking, the engine oil cooler. And if I'm going to be changing that, I might as well just leave, because that oil we tested, we know the oil is still good. Just leave it in there, and once I get all the leaks fixed, then I'll change it. There's no reason to change it now and then have it leak. Why didn't I do the fuel filter as well? Because after power washing it and then dealing with those belts, when I had the belts off, I couldn't start it. I really wanted to get the engine started again and make sure that it ran and that I hadn't done anything to interfere with its ability to run before I started messing with the fuel. Because if I did do the fuel and then it ran, now I'm like, oh, okay, well, why isn't it running? Does it need bled? But I just didn't want too many variables before I try to start it up. So let's start this thing up, make sure it runs, and that's probably where I'm gonna have to end this video. Next video, I'm gonna try to troubleshoot the swing bearing some more. Maybe it's the swing brake. We'll see if we can figure that out. We're going to do the fuel filters. We're going to do the final drives. We're going to do probably the engine oil cooler. I would like to get the engine so the oil is not leaking and I can go ahead and change that out. But I need to do the turbo. I need to do the hydraulic oil cooler. There's so much to do on this. The videos are just going to keep coming. The Beast is definitely a content generator. And yes, I did just call it the Beast yet again. I think that needs to be the name. One, it's gender neutral, you know? I've certainly known some beasts that aren't necessarily men. Two, it's a 170B, and the Beast, I mean, it just makes sense. It's a 170 Beast. That's what it is. All right, let's start this thing up and make sure she still runs. I was worried about that. I really should have tested the charging system sooner because it's not charging, and I was just in there with all the belts and the alternator and everything. So I'm gonna end up having to fight that battle again. That is a little lower on the list right now. At this point, I'm committed. Whatever needs fixed on it, I'm going to fix. It's just a matter of how much work is it gonna be. If it needs a swing bearing, I'll put a swing bearing on it. Am I crazy? Yeah, maybe. But man, this is the stuff I live for. This is awesome. Look at that thing. I own that. That's like the biggest toy I've ever owned. And maybe it won't be the biggest. Who knows? No, I don't have anything in mind. Just saying. So yeah, I'm going to end the video here. We'll see on the next one. We will continue getting this thing fixed up and kind of taking the problems in order of severity. I really need to get the swing brake sorted out, and then I need to start looking at the engine and get it running properly. And then we'll start looking at other things. I've gotten the leaks down to where they're very tolerable. So I'm happy about that. If it's a little drip here or there, obviously we can tolerate that for a long time. But the way it was dumping a lot of oil everywhere, and I didn't want to let it keep doing that. All right, enough yakking. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.